The first thing I saw was the welcome mat. The second was the laugh, love sign hanging where my antique fishing lures used to be. My heart hammered against my ribs, cold, hard knot of disbelief tightening in my stomach. What the hell was this? Just 3 days ago, before I flew out for my brother's wedding, this boathouse was an organized mess of rods, tackle boxes, and old oil cans, the sacred chaos of a man who loved his lake. Now, the air, thick with the smell of wet wood and motor oil I'd grown up with, had been replaced by a cloying, chemical scent of lavender air freshener, so strong it made my eyes water. What on earth? I muttered to myself, the words hanging in the crisp autumn air like a ghost. I stepped onto the small dock, the old planks creaking a familiar protest under my boots. The side door, which I had padlocked, was gone, replaced by a new-looking one with a ridiculous wreath on it. Who does this? I hesitated for a second, a moment of pure, unadulterated shock before a wave of pure rage washed over me. I pushed the door open, the cheap hinges groaning. Inside, my world had been turned upside down. My workshop table, littered with half-finished projects, was now a vanity with a stack of magazines and some kind of crystal lamp. My vintage cooler, a dented green box that had been with me for 30 years, was a makeshift side table for an oversized coffee mug. And there she was, sitting on a brand new, plush armchair I'd never seen before, a blonde woman with a sharp bob and sunglasses perched on top of her head, scrolling through her phone. A chihuahua yapped incessantly from a glittery pink dog bed in the corner. She didn't even look up at first. Excuse me? I said, my voice dangerously low. What are you doing in my boathouse? She finally lifted her head, and her eyes, magnified by her prescription lenses, narrowed with an expression of pure annoyance. Oh, finally. The old man who owns this lake property is here. Good. I've been waiting for you. Her voice was a grating, entitled bark, like nails on a chalkboard. I'm just tidying up. This place was an absolute dump, full of junk. But it's got such great potential. You know? I felt my jaw go slack. My junk? My life's work? My escape? I took a step inside, the floorboards groaning under my boots. This isn't an old lake property. This is my private property, and you're trespassing. Get out. She snorted, a sound that was somehow both condescending and amused. Oh, please. This boathouse was clearly abandoned. The door was broken, and it was just sitting here. I've been looking for a quiet place to get away from the city, and this is perfect. I've already filed an affidavit of adverse possession with the county clerk. She gestured around the room with a flick of her wrist. In this state, after 3 days, it's legally mine. My mind raced, trying to process the sheer audacity of her claim. 3 days? That's not how any of this works. My grandpa built this boathouse with his own hands 50 years ago. I'd spent my entire life on this dock. You have exactly 10 minutes to pack up your little chihuahua and get out of my boathouse before I call the police, I said, my voice trembling with a mix of fury and disbelief. She just laughed. Oh, you won't be doing that. I already did. My blood ran cold. What? She stood up, pulling a new iPhone from her pocket, the screen already illuminated. I told them I'm a single woman trying to establish a new life, and this crazy, aggressive man is threatening me. A smug grin spread across her face. I'm a victim here, sweetie, and you're the bad guy. My anger, a roaring fire a moment ago, suddenly went cold and still. A different kind of thought, quiet and methodical, began to take its place. The boathouse. She thought it was just a stationary building on the shore, a little lake cabin. But that's not what my grandpa built. He was a mechanical genius. He built it as a sanctuary, yes, but also as a kind of ark. The boathouse itself was a small barge, a floating vessel that could be disconnected from the shore and motored out onto the lake. should a major flood or a fire ever threaten the property. The mechanism was a series of hidden levers and hydraulic winches, all powered by an engine I kept meticulously maintained. She had no idea. She was completely ignorant of what this little cabin actually was. I felt my lips twitch, a grim smile fighting its way onto my face. She thought she had the upper hand, but she had just stepped into the most elaborate trap she could have imagined. I took a deep, deliberate breath, and another, and the cold knot in my stomach began to untangle. I started to walk towards the back of the boathouse, towards a wall she had probably assumed was just a load-bearing one. She saw me moving and took a step back, her phone still in her hand. "Don't you dare come any closer. The police are on their way. I told them you were armed." I just shook my head, a sad, knowing look on my face. "They're not going to be able to help you," I said, the words barely a whisper. "Not with this." She stammered something, but I wasn't listening. I pressed a seam in the wood paneling, and a narrow section of the wall slid inward, revealing a small, dusty control panel and a large, red lever. Her eyes went wide, a flicker of genuine fear crossing her face. "What is that?" she shrieked. "Are you a sociopath?" I ignored her, flipping a series of switches and then grabbing the heavy red lever. I could hear the faint, hydraulic hiss of the winches as they started to disengage the massive pins that secured the boathouse to the shore. A low, familiar rumble started up from underneath my feet, the sound of the old diesel engine humming to life. She finally screamed, a high-pitched sound of pure terror. She put the phone to her ear, frantically. 911? The man. He's doing something. The boathouse is moving. The floor is shaking. I pulled the lever all the way back, and the boathouse gave a violent shudder. With a final, groaning protest of splintering wood and groaning metal, it detached completely from the shore. We began to drift, slowly at first, and then with a gentle, undeniable momentum, out into the middle of the lake. I just stood there, watching her face as she looked through the window at the receding shoreline. "I swear to God, you will regret this. I'm suing you. I'll take everything you have." She screamed at me, her voice now a mix of rage and panic. But her voice was losing the battle against the wind and the lapping of the water. I walked back to the door and opened it, stepping out onto what was now a small, private deck, the boathouse bobbing gently behind me. I looked out at the vast, open water, a quiet smile on my face. She had wanted a perfect, quiet place. She had wanted to escape the city and start a new life. And she had found it. The boathouse was her home now, exactly as she had wanted. The only problem was, it was a home with no power, no Wi-Fi, and no connection to the shore. She was still screaming into her phone, and I could hear the faint, tinny voice of the 911 dispatcher on the other end, completely confused by her frantic, incomprehensible pleas. "Ma'am, where are you exactly?" the voice asked. I just leaned against the side of the boathouse, watching the sun start to dip below the horizon. The lake was quiet, and the air smelled of fresh water and old gasoline. She thought she could just take what she wanted and claim it as her own. But justice isn't always served in a courtroom. Sometimes, it's served on the water.